The reflection that wasn't mine. It started on a chilly autumn evening, the kind where the air feels heavy, almost electric. I had just moved into an old Victorian house in a small New England town, chasing the quiet solitude I thought I needed after a messy breakup. The house was charming, but undeniably eerie, with its creaking floorboards, dimly lit hallways, and a large antique mirror that came with the place, mounted on the wall of the upstairs hallway. I didn't think much of the mirror at first. It was ornate, with an intricately carved wooden frame that looked like it belonged in a museum. I even thought about selling it, but something about it made me leave it alone. The first night, I noticed something odd. As I was heading to bed, I walked past the mirror and saw what I thought was a shadow moving behind me. I froze, my heart pounding, but when I turned around, nothing was there. I laughed it off. Maybe I was just tired. The following nights, the strange occurrences continued. I started seeing fleeting movements in the mirror's reflection, too fast to catch, but just enough to make me question my sanity. One night, I distinctly saw a figure standing behind me in the reflection. It was blurry, like a smudge of darkness, but its shape was unmistakable. "You're just imagining things," I whispered to myself, avoiding the mirror's gaze as I hurried to my room. But the mirror had other plans. It was a week later when the knocking started. I was lying in bed, half asleep, when I heard a faint tapping sound. It was rhythmic, deliberate, and coming from upstairs, right where the mirror was. I grabbed my phone, using its flashlight as I cautiously climbed the stairs. The tapping grew louder, and as I rounded the corner to the hallway, it stopped. My breath fogged in the cold air as I shone the light toward the mirror. Nothing. But then, my reflection blinked. I hadn't blinked. I stumbled backward, dropping my phone, and the hallway plunged into darkness. When I scrambled to pick it up, the light revealed something etched into the mirror's surface. "Help me." The next morning, I called the landlord, demanding to know the history of the house. He hesitated before admitting that the previous tenant had left abruptly, refusing to say why. Digging deeper, I found an old news article about a woman named Eleanor who had lived there decades ago. She had been reported missing, her disappearance never solved. That night, I decided to confront the mirror. Armed with a flashlight and a voice recorder, I sat in front of it, trembling. "Who are you?" I whispered. The air around me seemed to grow heavier. The room chilled. Then faintly, I saw her. A pale, gaunt woman appeared in the mirror, her eyes hollow but pleading. "Help me," she mouthed, her voice echoing faintly in my ears, even though her lips made no sound. I mustered the courage to ask, "How?" She raised a skeletal hand and pointed behind me. I whipped around, but nothing was there. When I turned back to the mirror, her reflection was gone, replaced by my own. But now, there was a key lying on the floor beneath the mirror. The key led me to a trapdoor in the basement I hadn't noticed before. With my heart racing, I pried it open to reveal a narrow tunnel. The air was thick and musty as I crawled through, flashlight trembling in my hand. At the end of the tunnel, I found a small, hidden room. Inside was an old, rotting trunk. My hands shook as I opened it, revealing a collection of items, a locket, a diary, and horrifyingly, a bundle of bones wrapped in tattered cloth. The diary belonged to Eleanor. Her last entry described her husband, a jealous and violent man, who had accused her of infidelity. The mirror, she wrote, was her only solace. But one night, in a fit of rage, he had killed her and hidden her body, sealing her spirit within the mirror. I called the authorities, and the remains were taken for investigation. I expected Eleanor's spirit to be at peace after that, but the mirror wasn't done with me. A few nights later, I woke up to see her standing at the foot of my bed, not as a reflection, but as a shadowy, almost translucent figure. She looked at me with a softness I hadn't seen before. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice faint and echoing like a distant wind. And then she was gone. The mirror cracked the next morning, a jagged line running through its center. I didn't bother repairing it. Instead, I moved out a week later, leaving it behind. Sometimes I wonder if Eleanor truly found peace, or if she's still watching, waiting for someone else to find her reflection. Story 2. My wife had a double life, and I only found out by accident. Hi, Reddit. This is my first post, and I'm not sure where to even begin. I'm writing this to get some closure, I guess, because my world has completely flipped upside down in the last week. Buckle up, this one's a mess. I've been married to my wife Sarah for 7 years. We met in college and hit it off instantly. She was smart, funny, and beautiful. Everything I ever wanted in a partner. We had what I thought was a solid relationship. Sure, we argued sometimes, but who doesn't? For the most part, things were good, or at least I thought they were. Last week I stayed late at work. I'm a software developer, and we had a big deadline, so I didn't get home until around 10 p.m. When I pulled into the driveway, I noticed a car I didn't recognize parked across the street. It looked familiar, but I couldn't quite place it. I didn't think much of it until I walked inside. The house was quiet, but there was a jacket on the couch that didn't belong to me or Sarah. My heart started pounding. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe one of her friends had stopped by? But something about the whole situation felt off. I called out her name, and after a moment, she came downstairs looking startled. "Oh, you're home early," she said, her voice shaky. I asked her who the jacket belonged to, and she hesitated before saying it was her friend Rachel's. Rachel wasn't someone who usually came over, but I let it slide. The next morning, something still didn't sit right with me. I couldn't shake the image of that unfamiliar car or the way Sarah had acted. That's when I remembered our security cameras. We had a system set up mainly to watch for package thieves, and I rarely looked at the footage. But when I checked the previous night's recordings, my stomach dropped. At around 7 p.m., a man had arrived in the car I'd seen outside. He walked right into our house, like he'd been here before. About an hour later, the two of them stepped out onto the porch, laughing and holding hands. They kissed before heading back inside. I couldn't breathe. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through more footage. Over the past few months, he'd been here several times, always when I was at work late. I felt like an idiot for not noticing sooner. All the late nights I spent at the office, thinking I was doing the right thing for our future, she was spending them with someone else. When Sarah got home that evening, I confronted her. At first, she denied everything. She tried to act like I was crazy for accusing her, but when I told her about the camera footage, her face went pale. She knew she couldn't lie her way out of this one. Finally, she admitted it. His name was Eric, someone she met at her gym. They'd been seeing each other for almost a year. I asked her why. Why would she do this? She said she felt neglected and lonely because of my work schedule. That stung. I've been working so hard to build a good life for us. Everything I did was for our future, and she turned it into an excuse to betray me. I asked if she loved him. She hesitated, then said, "I don't know." That broke me. How could she throw away 7 years of marriage for someone she didn't even know if she loved? I told her to pack a bag and leave. She cried, begged, and said she wanted to work things out. But how could I ever trust her again? Every time I'd look at her, I'd see her lies, her betrayal. I couldn't do it. She ended up leaving that night, staying with a friend, or at least that's what she told me. I don't even know if I believe her anymore. Since then, I've been trying to make sense of everything. I haven't told anyone yet, not my family, not my friends. I don't even know how to start that conversation. I feel humiliated and heartbroken. I trusted her with everything, and she threw it all away. The hardest part is the little things. I'll see her toothbrush in the bathroom or a pair of her shoes by the door, and it's like a punch to the gut. It's the realization that the life I thought we had was just a lie. I've also been questioning myself nonstop. Was I really that bad of a husband? Did I miss the signs? Could I have done something to prevent this? This morning, I got an email from Sarah. She said she wants to meet and talk. She claims she's cut things off with Eric and wants to work on our marriage. But I don't know if I can. Trust is everything, and she destroyed that. I've also been going down a rabbit hole online, reading stories from other people who've been cheated on. Some of them forgave their partners and rebuilt their relationships, but others said it's better to walk away. I don't know which path is right for me. So Reddit, what do I do now? How do you rebuild your life when the person you thought you'd spend forever with turns out to be someone you don't even recognize? Has anyone here ever forgiven something like this and made it work? Or is it better to cut my losses and move on?